and moves were made. Hands were shook, money exchanged hands, possibly drugs. But it was all good. It was all in the name of fantasy football.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dynasty. Like I said, we all see things differently.
Put it on his shirt. I just drank what tasted like a root beer, but now I'm feeling kind of tipsy.
Ride that unicorn, my friend.
I was really going to do an awful Mexican accent. And I realized how mad I'd be at someone else for doing that. So, hi.
We all are very intrigued and very interested in what will happen this year.
It is Tuesday, 9:34 in the PM. I am Peter Livingston. This is the Dynasty Podcast, a seasonal fantasy football podcast in which 12 friends enter, one leaves champion, and a good time is had by all, which is what everybody should be striving for in their fantasy football seasons. And we just wrapped up our regular season, as did most other fantasy football leagues if you haven't already started your playoffs. Week 14 is officially in the books. There isn't going to be a ton to talk about in terms of matchups because, well, there were only probably about two that really mattered, and we'll kind of get through the others. We'll go through the standings, the final standings, let everybody know how we finished. Again, with our league, the final standings will determine the draft pick order. So what we mean by that is the last place team gets to choose at what position they would like to be picking. And then the second to last, and then third to last, and fourth, and so on, and so on, and so on. So, we'll be going through that. There have been some significant news and notes, I must say, that we will be diving into as well. Sadly, we can't get into the playoff matchups yet. That'll be saved for tomorrow, but we will get there eventually. At least we can tell you who's in, who's out, and what those first matchups will be, but we won't be breaking those down. And then we'll talk a little bit about the waiver wire. I might try and wax on, wax off some philosophical goodness, reflecting a little bit on this past season, and we will go from there. I'm hoping that we can do an hour, but I really don't know if we will. I think first what I'll do, I know that I typically do news and notes, but I almost feel like we should just get right into it and look at the matchups, the week that was week 14, and then go over the standings. And then we'll go on from there. And so we'll start with my game first. It was me against Tim. The original projection was 96 to 95. It definitely did not end up that way. 116 to 59. 59.92 was the final score. And my team just... So not really too much to break down with this. Tim finishes the year at 8-6. I finish at 5-9. Didn't get to do my typical upsets that I did last year, where I crushed hope and dreams. Not this year. So just some of the things I'll touch on, and some of these will roll into news and notes. So I had Josh McCown as my quarterback, and he suffered a broken left hand and will be getting surgery. He's now on IR and is done for the year. He had a very serviceable year. He was a very solid quarterback. There's talks about whether he'll be the quarterback of the future. Probably not. I think they might want to try and find and develop somebody. But Josh McCown, he had a very good year this year. Started off slow, but the middle part to late part of the year, he was pretty darn good. Within like a 7-week stretch, he was absolutely amazing. Running the football and throwing the football. He had some pretty impressive games last week. His biggest of the season, he had 31 points against a Kansas City team that they upset. And this week, he got me minus 0.4 points. So he wasn't in the game very long. So that doesn't necessarily affect me or anybody else going forward, but it was one of the major injuries. There were some other major injuries as well, and we will get to those later. For Tim, DeAndre Hopkins had a massive game against San Francisco with 24 points. Michael Thomas had an amazing game at Atlanta, 17 points. And then Jordan Howard, 147 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Was an absolute beast. And that was about it. Everybody else was kind of for par, but Tim, 116 points. Horrible. We'll talk a little bit about roto, but just horrible luck this year. Second in roto and missing out on the playoffs. That's just bad luck. And then for me, Alvin Kamara got knocked out with a concussion. I mean, nothing serious, but he was hurt. And same thing with Tevin Coleman, also going through concussion protocol for Tim. But, nothing significant, nothing that really affects us. And then the Denver defense that I picked up served me quite well. They got me 18 points. They were my high score for the week. So, me and Tim, our seasons are done. Tim finishes in 5th place. I finish in 8th. Tip of the cap to you, sir. May you have a great off season. The next game we will do is also within our division, and it was the biggest game of the season. Well, not the season, of the week. And it was Eliot against Tahir. The winner would get to make it as the 3 seed in the playoffs. The original projection was 102-99 in favor of Tahir. The final score was 137-125. And the number 3 seed, the champion of the God Eliot division, is Tahir. Tahir takes down Eliot, goes to 9-5 on the year. Eliot falls to 7-7 and finishes in 6th place. And this came down. This was so wonky. This is so crazy. So let me just go through the scores. Matt Stafford had an amazing game. 381 passing yards. Touchdown. He did have 2 interceptions. But coming in with the hurt hand, he always has a hurt hand every year. He wasn't hurting his hand, but he's just so damn efficient. That's one of those games where if he had another touchdown or two, it'd be banner. Adam Thielen, great job against Carolina, 16 points. He was projected at 10. Jarvis Landry, 16 points. He was projected for 8 against New England. The upset, the Miami Dolphins take down the New England Patriots. Go Fish. Mike Crabtree does. He almost hits his projection, 8 points out of his 9.5. And Gio Bernard, like I was saying, he was going to be very solid, and he was 13 points right on the dot. And Jamal Williams continues his amazing fantasy run late in the season, running all over the hapless Cleveland Browns for 23 points. Not so much. I mean, he's doing it mainly with touchdowns, The carries and the workload is there. Yardage not so much. A lot of the work that he did was against a Tampa Bay team that's kind of and then Cleveland held him to only 49 yards, but he was able to plunge into the end zone, and then I think he caught another touchdown too. But he's really come on these past few weeks. With all the injuries and such, and has kind of helped anchor this offense. And then Robbie Gould, San Francisco kicker, with 17 points with I guess you would call it an upset against Houston on the road. That was a fun game to watch. But Eliot's team, very, very well. Obviously, roughly 30 points over projection, 25, 26 points over projection. Did really, really well. Then we look at Tahir's team. Dak Prescott went back to his old ways, 332 yards with 3 passing touchdowns, 26 points out of projected 17. That was one of the ones where you look at it and that was grossly under-projected, regardless of what you thought about the Dallas offense and their performance the past few weeks. He was looking better the week before against Washington, not that great. And then this week against the Giants, they've just milled, and he was absolutely amazing. Looking at the rest of the roster, Tyreek Hill held in check for the most part. He had a really good game, though. 75 yards, 17 return yards against Oakland. That was one of those game flow games. They got up. They're going to win. There wasn't much else for them to do. Kansas City, they're not really screwing around right now. They want to win the West. That was a big game because the Raiders, and the Chargers are all fighting for the AFC West, which is greatly up for grabs. And Kansas City just did what they had to do to win and go home. So Marvin Jones Jr. Slowed down a little bit. Only had 6.4 points against Tampa Bay, which, Tahir was, I'm sure, hoping for more. He's had a couple of big games this year. Definitely one of those big feast or famine type. He's usually going to get you about 4 or 5 points if he's not on, but when he is on, he's going to get you, upwards of 20. But the 6.4 points out of a projected 8 wasn't very good. Tyreek Hill, he was projected for 12, and he probably should have had more. I definitely thought that he was going to have more. But with only the 8, can't be too mad at that. Like, you throw in a touchdown, and that's a great day. But then Doug Baldwin at Jacksonville, 78 receiving yards and a touchdown. 13.8 points, and that's over his 8-point projected total. And that was very much game flow, which is how a lot of the Seattle points have been coming. They need to throw. They throw a lot. Jacksonville was up. They gave him the cushion, and it was really just inevitable, the fact that Doug Baldwin was going to start racking up some of the receptions in that after that third quarter. And then Leonard Fournette, same thing. This Seattle defense is, to kind of go on the news and notes, they're paper thin. And I mean paper thin. They've lost 2 of their best linebackers and tacklers. They lost their 2 best cornerbacks. Leonard Fournette, 100 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. This isn't the same Seattle defense anymore. That's for darn sure. This was a good matchup anyway, because the Seattle defense, for the most part, still did good against the run going into this game, but that was because they had Michael Bennett and they had everybody. Their front 7 was still very good. But 24 yards and 24 carries with 101 yards and a touchdown. Leonard Fournette just put him through the meat grinder. Got 18 points out of his projected 11.5. And then Marshawn Lynch, I don't know why he didn't get the ball more in that game. I just don't understand it. He's been running really, really well. He had 26 carries 2 weeks ago, 17 last week, and then only 7 this week. And I mean, I get it, like you're playing catch up, but give the guy the damn ball. That's why you brought him in. You kept his touches relatively low, or, around 10, 10 to 13. Like, give the man the freaking ball. I didn't understand that. He did get a touchdown, though, to salvage his day, 61 yards and a touchdown. And then Travis Kelce, like I was saying, very much a game flow, grinded out. Talked about Kareem Hunt, and he had a good day. We'll get into that a little bit later. But Travis Kelce, 7.4 points. He had a projected 11, and he did drop 2 potential touchdowns. So, and then the big ones are these final 3 for Tahir. Alex Collins with 22.6 points out of his projected 8. Very much offsets the Williams performance from Eliot. Both of these guys starting in the slot. 120 yards rushing with a touchdown and then 45 receiving yards. Alex Collins had a monster game. And then going all in on the Philadelphia special teams unit, Jake Elliott with 14 points, in the Philadelphia defense with 8. The almost what could have been the nail in the coffin. I mean, Collins ended up having a monster game, so it didn't really matter. But the Philadelphia defense, for the most part, when you give up 35 points, you're not expecting very much. They did have 2 fumble recoveries, but even then, they were still projected out, 0 or 1 point or something like that. I think it was 0. End of the game, Rams are trying to run some BS lateral, keep the thing alive. Tahir was like losing by 5 or 6 points or something like that. They intercept the lateral and then and then run it in for a touchdown. And I couldn't freaking believe it. Excuse me. All I could think was, if that is the play that does an Eliot, that would be horrible. I could not believe it. I was laughing, not because, I just couldn't believe that happened, that play happened. It was so ridiculous. I cannot fathom how many games were won and lost off of that one single play. It would just absolutely boggled my mind. So looking at the benches for these players, there wasn't really anything that anybody could have done in order to have ensured a victory. The tight end position was really, you could probably say, one of the big things that sunk Eliot, to be honest with you. Everybody else performed pretty close to what was expected, or obviously above, when you were projected for 99 and you score 125. But when it came down to it, the gamble on Steven Anderson coming in, and, of course, can't say that you quite blame Eliot, because he had 13 points against Tennessee the week before. It was really the only shining moment for him this year, of course, because he was playing in the backup role, but went into San Francisco and got shut down. And I mean, 12 points, you're asking, will a tight end, make up the 12 points? Probably not, but, if there was one glaring mishap right there, it was definitely the tight end position. You can't look at Cousins. He started the right QB, getting Matt Stafford. Cousins only had 9 points, so good season to Eliot. Made a valiant effort, but now you just suck like all the rest of us. But we do love you. So Tahir, like I said, gets that number 3 spot. Goes into the playoffs, I think, for the first time ever. So Tahir, keeping the shithead the back-to-back shithead dream alive and well. It's so freaking crazy. Let's go ahead. Let's go to the other division that's already been locked up. They don't matter too much, but we'll go into this anyway. We had Pat against Matt. A team has no name against Upside Down and Gold. 79-89 in favor of Matt was the projection, and Patty 99-77, riding the arm of big sexy mixed turd biscuit Trubisky, 21 points out of a projected 11. On the road in Cincinnati, 33-7, leading his team to victory. Get on my back. Well, he not so much, but he did rush for a touchdown and get a passing touchdown as well, and that's cool to see. I'm glad that there's some young talent out there. Sadly, some of the young talent's also getting hurt, which is just sucks for fantasy. D.D. Westbrook had another great game for Jacksonville, 14 points, 81 receiving yards and a touchdown. Kenny Galladay, not so much. Mike Williams for the Chargers, not so much as well. Combining for 2.9 points for the two of them. They were projected together for 9.5 points. Kenyon Drake, though, looked really good against New England. And Miami had a game plan, and that was obviously to keep the ball out of New England's hand. Kenyon Drake with 114 rushing yards and 79 receiving yards. So he's had a pretty good year this year, too. Coming in to the, I guess you would call it the feature back role. I know that I'm blanking on the offensive, the coach's name right now. I don't know why, but he's always like, I don't like to have a feature back. It's like, just have a fucking feature back. Just give Kenyon Drake the ball. Like you look at the production, 23 carries last week against Denver, 25 this week, and both times he's over 100 yards and getting you touchdowns. It's just like, I've said it before. It's just, I don't understand why teams do 3-4 running back. Just have a lead back. Have a good supplemental running back that you can come in. I mean, Alvin Kamara is an exception to the second fiddle running back. But I mean, that's really how you need to do it. You look at somebody like the Saints or even the Panthers, who are kind of like a light version, but I think they'll get that going maybe at some point. Don't do this 3-4 running back thing. I just don't get it. Like it hasn't worked for any team ever. Just get your guy and go. Just get your guy and go. Alfred Morris, pretty solid day. 80 total yards. Got a good workload. But, he was overshadowed by Rod Smith, who caught a couple passes and took him to the house. So his amazing day was kind of upended a little bit. And then Evan Ingram, only 54 yards there. But the big one, Kansas City, Harrison Butker, massive game, 17 points. Gotta love it. And then let's go over to Maddie's team, Jared Goff, 14 points. You're definitely hoping for more out of the young Jared Goff. I really wonder how he's going to be going forward. I know he's part of a great offense, but I don't know. I kind of see him in the same light as like the 49er Alex Smith, 49er Colin Kaepernick, where it's like, I don't know. I think they're really going to try and continue to run the ball, and Jared Goff will just kind of be a compliment to that. But it's like, when you go and score 35 points and you only throw for 199 and 2 touchdowns, it's like, my God, you kind of hope for a little bit more out of him. Maybe next year, year 3, maybe that'll be his year. But I don't know. I'm always excited. I want to see more young talent get there. That's what I always hope for. Stills and Doxson, not so much, but Corey Coleman, 62 yards and a receiving touchdown in an effort against Green Bay. And then Lamar Miller, only 6 points. Devontae Freeman, though, solid game. And oh my God, that Atlanta-New Orleans game. I don't know how Atlanta won that. New Orleans completely outplayed them. It was wonky. I can't remember what happened at the end, but I remember it was wonky, and it was like they had no business winning, but they won anyway. But 91 yards and a rushing touchdown for Freeman. Good way to end the year. He had 24 carries. Good workload. And if Matty was in the playoffs, I was going to say he's a good matchup next week against Tampa Bay, but he doesn't. So, good season to both these gentlemen. Pat, 3-11, 12th place. Matt, 5-9, 9th place. 3-11, fun fact, was actually the band in which Matt Hughes lost his virginity to that was playing in the background. Don't even know if that's true. Made that up off the top of my head. Let's head on down to the next game. Bake Bree against It Wasn't the Handle. Marcos versus Brienne. 5-9 and 5-9 are the records for these two after this one. 90-66 was the original projection. 82-66 Brienne with the upset. They did a little inverse there. The big ones for Brienne were, and this is with, she had Jordan Matthews, who's on the IR starting a wide receiver, and she won this somehow. Ben Roethlisberger with 500 passing yards and 2 touchdowns against Baltimore in what was an absolute shootout, obviously. And then Cooper Kupp with 17 points, 11 points for Duke Johnson, 13 points for Isaiah Crowell. You got to love facing the Green Bay defense now. And that's about it, really. That pretty much carried her. She got minus 2 points minus 0.2 points from Aaron Jones, the Green Bay running back who's trying to work his way back in after injury. That's going to be an interesting backfield to watch next year. You know, you got Ty Montgomery, who came out and was absolutely amazing. He had his 20-point games. He was looking so good before he got hurt. You know, Aaron Jones came in and looked amazing. He was having 19-point, double-digit point games before he got hurt. And then it just, each back that's come into the featured role has been really good. So it's like, who do you get next year? Like, who do you invest in? Is it Ty Montgomery? You know, is it Williams? Is it Jones? You know, who's it going to be? That's going to be a tough one to follow. And then for Marcos, you know, Marquise Goodwin, I think, is the only sufficient performance that he had. This was his third double-digit effort in fantasy production for Marquise Goodwin. You can say fourth because he got 9.9 points last week against Chicago, but 12 targets, 6 receptions, 10.6 points. The targets haven't always been there for him, but he had 12 this week, 8 last week, and then everything it was like 6, and then 2, and then 3. So it kind of bounces around a little bit. But it's surprise, surprise. When the targets are up, his production is up. So maybe he'll become a good focal point in the offense going forward. More complimentary piece if the the San Francisco 49ers able to go find somebody in the draft. On the bench, Carson Wentz, 28 points for Brian, and then 18 points from Tyler Lockett, who pretty much got that on one play against Jacksonville when they were making their comeback. But Carson Wentz diving into the end zone, gets hit by 2 defenders, busts up his knee. He's done for the year. Might even miss a little bit of the beginning of the season next year, but that stinks because I think he was a number 1 fantasy quarterback going into this week, and it's just a shame. I know that it sucks for me to have him another league that I was in, and just to lose him at this point in the year was just like absolutely devastating. It's just, I mean, for fantasy and also just in general, because you could probably make the case that the Eagles were the favorite going into the playoffs, and now they're going to try and do it with Nick Foles going forward. But I'm just hoping, you look at a lot of these injuries that happen. Deshaun Watson, now Carson Wentz. I just hope that they're able to recuperate and come back and have that same level of production, because it's good for football. It's even better for fantasy, because it means, one, there's more competent quarterbacks, and then two, the people that are playing around them are viable fantasy options as well, and it just adds more to the table. Sanu and Rudolph were also on Brienne's benches, and they both had touchdowns, double-digit games. Let's head on down to Braggadocious 1-1 against Alcoholics Anonymous. Unanimous 129-81 was the projection. 119-80 was the final in favor of Matt Keiser, who finishes at 11-3 and has the number 1 seed going into the playoffs. Scott finishes at 4-10 in 11th place. Heavy lifting was done by the Pittsburgh guys. Le'Veon Bell with 30 points. Antonio Brown with 21. Drew Brees with a solid game, 18 points. You always kind of hope that he's going to have a little bit more. But that was just a weird game. That was a really, really, really weird game. For Scott, Jimmy Garoppolo had a great football game, not the best fantasy game. He had 16 points. He was projected for 13, so he went over. That's good. You're hoping that in the future they're able to build off of that, and maybe he'll become an elite quarterback. That would be great for Scott. Be great for us 49er fans. And Theo Riddick, going into that feature role, 2 rushing touchdowns, 64 receiving yards, only 30 rushing yards. But, I think that Theo Riddick could be the feature back going forward. I went and I rolled the dice on, I'm blanking on the rookie's name, because he had a really good game where he came in and got 60 yards rushing off the bench, and I thought, maybe they'll give him some more run, and then no, they just went to Theo Riddick and made him the feature back. And if that is going forward, which I think will happen, I think they might be done with Amir Abdullah. He hasn't really been healthy, which is ironic because he was healthy all through his college years, and then he got here and just been breaking down. That would be a great pickup for Scott, in that backfield. I'm blanking on the other. This is Zimmerman. I think it's Zimmerman. I can't remember. The other running back also you could argue that Riddick and the other guy have been way better than Abdullah. I know that people like the talent of Abdullah, but I would say that Riddick and the backup running backs have been just far more efficient. And those might be the two going forward. And then Kyle Forbath, Minnesota kicker, with 10, and the Detroit defense with 13 points on the road at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, man, what a dumpster fire. And then on the bench, we had Tyrell Williams, who had a very good game. It's been a while since we've been able to say that. I mean, he had 2 other double-digit games. He had 11 points 2 weeks ago, and then he had 17 points in Week 4 against Philadelphia. This is somebody last year that was such a big part of that offense. When I think it was Keenan Allen got injured, he was able to just step in and produce immediately. But it hasn't really been the case this year, which has been a bummer. And then Des Bryant was on the bench for Keiser, who had 73 yards and a touchdown. And that's kind of, that's Des Bryant. He's going to get you 60, 70, 80 yards and a touchdown. So let's go ahead and let's go down to the final game, which was Fart Apocalypse against Car Ramrod. The projection was 107 to 106 in favor of Robin. The final score was 118 to 109 in favor of Robin. So Robin finishes at 11-3. Joe finishes at 11-3. But Robin with the division record gets that second seed. Joe gets the 4th seed, the wild card spot. And this is where it really came down, We're looking at Joe's team. Russell Wilson with 24 points out of his projected 19. He had 3 passing touchdowns, 271 and 50 rushing. And Josh Gordon gets his touchdown, 69 receiving yards and a TD, like I just said, for about 13 points. And that was a good game against Green Bay. And Todd Gurley, 2 rushing touchdowns with 96 yards and 39 receiving yards. Todd Gurley moved into the number 1 overall running back spot this season. Carlos Hyde with 13 points and 78 yards rushing and a touchdown against Houston. Rex Burkhead, not too much going in terms of rushing. He only had 8 rushing yards, but he did have 45 yards receiving. In the touchdown, definitely salvaged his game. He only had 5 carries, and that's part. It was just a weird game. You could say it's game flow. White, I think it was White, came in and got a few more carries and got a few more catches, and Rex Burkhead did get the short yardage touchdown, but this is a weird game. They didn't have a first down and all types of weird statistics, but touchdown saves a day, gives him 11 out of his projected 9 points, and everything else was kind of meh. Brandon Cooks, 3 out of his projected 11, Diggs, 6 out of his projected 8, Seattle defense, 1 out of their projected 7. Looking over at Robin's team, a little bit of an inverse. The quarterback position, Tom Brady, shockingly against Miami, underperforms by half, 11 out of his projected 22. Really just not a good game. Julio Jones went about for par. He got about 10 points out of his projected 11. Always hoping for a touchdown out of him. That's typical Julio. It's like, God, you throw a touchdown in there, it's like elite wide receiver freaking status, but he just has not been getting it. He only has 3 touchdowns on the year with 1,100 receiving yards. But Golden Tate, like he typically does, starts to turn it on a little bit late in the year. 14 points against Tampa Bay. Devontae Adams, big game against Cleveland, that's a fun game just because both defenses suck. So it was just like throwing the ball and running the ball all over the place. That was a fun game. And then Shady McCoy with 156 rushing yards and a touchdown against Indianapolis, 21 points. And Kareem Hunt, like I was saying, this dude's going to get a freaking workload going forward. 19.8 points out of his projected 10. And then you look who he's got next week against the Chargers. Not the best run defense. They got some good cover corners. But in terms of running the ball, I think he's going to get a heavy workload too. And then Sterling Shepard. Man, I don't know what to say. 0.7 points, 3 targets, 2 receptions, 16 yards. It's you lose 30-10. I don't know. I mean, you're not gonna. I don't know. I don't think you're gonna drop him. You want to hold on to him, maybe, hopefully for next year. But man, it's tough. Who do they got next week? Philly. Yeah, I don't know. That's rough. Ryan Suckup. But, I don't know. Like, it's the other thing, though. When he gets it from Eli, you look at his other games, he was out the 2 weeks. But when you look at when he had 13 targets, he got you 142 yards, 9 targets, 70 yards, for whatever reason, 3 targets this past week, and then only 6 targets against Oakland the week before. So I don't know if you think he's going to get the targets, like he's going to be a freaking beast. But if he's only getting 3 targets, 6 targets, I don't know. But and then the Eagles, which have been a good defense at the same time, it's like they have been giving up a lot of points lately. So that's something that Rob will have to look at going forward. But yeah, Robin beats Joe 118 to 109. You look at the bench, nothing really there. Joe's bench, everybody's on IR. So no points there. Except for Greg Olson. No, Zach Ertz. Concussion protocol. Yeah. So let's go ahead and look at the league. The playoffs. So let's go to the final standings. The number 1 seed, the number 1 ranked team, number 1 in points, 16.86 points scored. Man's getting his money. Braggadocious Matt Keyser, 11-3 record. Number 2 will be Fart Apocalypse. Robin, 11-3. The number 3 seed at 9-5 will be Tahir, the Teabaggers. The number 4 seed will be Joe at 11-3. And the number 5 team in 5th place. Congratulations, everybody, with the making the playoffs. I still hope you all lose. None of you deserve to be in there. None of you. It should be me. Me and nobody else in the playoffs. Bitter, resentful human being, jealous of all of your fantasy successes. Number 5 is Tim at 8-6. The number 6 team is Eliot with a 7-7 record. The number 7 team is Marcos at 5-9. The number 8 team is me, the Fighting Sponges, at 5-9. The number 9 team, Upside Down in Goal, at 5-9. Is the number 9 team. A lot of 9s. The number 10 team at 5-9, Baked Brie. The number 11 team at 4-10 is Scott, and then the number 12 team at 3-11 is Pat. So, with that said, the draft order will be the reverse of that. Pat will be picking the first spot, which will probably be the number 1 overall. Scott will be picking the second spot, or he will be picking second, which will probably be the number 2 overall. The third pick will go to Brienne, and the 4th will go to me, and so on 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 and so on. And then Keyser will get whatever is the last space available. And we won't be talking about draft strategy or anything like that quite yet. Save that for the end of the year. I covered most of the news and notes as we went through the games. A lot of injuries. Cincinnati defense decimated. Seattle defense decimated. Concussions and knees being blown out. Just all types of bad stuff. Nothing that really affects the playoff teams though. And we'll get into playoff matchups tomorrow. Maybe I'll have the what's it called? The commissioner on tomorrow if he's feeling up to snuff. We'll see. I still have some stuff that I got to run by him. I'll hound him about that tomorrow. But good year. We could do better, I think. And we've talked about that before. I'm excited to propose a couple different things that we can try next year. I'm hoping that we're going to be more vote yesy and less vote no-y on some of this stuff. Again, it doesn't have to be permanent. We can try things. And if we don't like them, we can always change them again. So I say we give that a shot. I say we give it a whirl. Waivers, there's going to be a ton of waivers. I know there's going to be. I'm going to set the line for waivers. I'm going to set it at like 14.5. I'm going to set the waivers at 14.5. You're hearing it here. The highest line I think we've ever done, but there's going to be a ton. All these teams are going to be offloading. Well, I don't know if all of them are. Some of them might be a little stagnant, but all in all, I think there's going to be a lot of moving and shaking. Remember, you people that are getting your trade backs from your rentals, you got to leave room at the end of the year. You just can't load up. You know what I'm saying? Know what I mean? But this should be a lot of fun. I'm setting the line 14.5. We've been talking about a couple different things in the league. I'll do this for the next few minutes. See how long he can go. We did news and notes. We did the weekly breakdown. We looked a little bit to the waiver wire for tomorrow. I just think there's going to be a lot. It's kind of fun seeing people scramble and stuff like that. For me, I think I need to save a spot for Jay Ajayi. I think that might be it. I think he might be the only guy that I sent off. But what we're going to do now, we're going to go ahead and look at Roto going forward. And just recap where we are at the end of our regular season. And I like I said, I think that this year could have been better in terms of the competition aspect. I mean, we were still active on Slack and talking with each other and stuff, but the competition aspect of it wasn't the best. So, funny that I say that. Eliot just said the following players, playoff teams may not acquire. These are all people being dumped. Yeah. Let's look at the Dynasty Roto rankings for this season. Top to bottom, number one team is Matt Keyser, 117 and 37 with a 76 Roto win percentage, 0.026 above performance in terms of wins and losses. Tim is in second place with a 110-44 Roto record, grossly underperforming, which says bad luck. Red is bad luck. And then next we have Robin, 94 and 60. He's definitely performing well. So essentially 17.5%. Joe is 92 and 62, 18%, and Marcos is 88 and 66, who's 21% under. Also, some not good luck, I would say. Eliot, who is 83 and 71 on the year, 3% under. So he's about as where he should be, right? And Roto's kind of saying that. He's about 50%. I am 80 and 74, and I am 16% under. So, again, not very good, kind of up there with Marcos. Marcos has the biggest discrepancy, which also signals some bad luck. Tahir, 80 and 74, 12% over. So, performing well, getting some good matchups there, just like with Robin and Joe. Joe has the highest, and then Robin the second highest. Matt Hughes, 63 and 91 on the year for Roto, 5% under discrepancy, so pretty close to to 0. Same with Brienne at 6, positive 6.5%, with her 45 and 109 record. And then Pat 38 and 116, 3%, negative 3%. And then Scott at 34 and 120 at 6.5%, just like Brienne. So there you have it for Roto for 2017. I think we cap it right there. I don't think we continue it after this week. But that's that. And then we're looking at all-time Roto. Number one, not much has really changed, to be completely honest with you. Robin and Joe are 1 and 2. Keezer at 3. Eliot at 4. Hughes at 5, Tim at 6, Tahir at 7, Scott at 8, Marcos at 9, I'm at 10, Pat at 11, and Brienne at 12. The highest win percentage is Robin, roughly 62%. The lowest being Brienne, roughly 40%, 39.7% being her win percentage. All right, so that's lifetime. That is the 2017 Roto. Some fun stats that Robin brought up. And every year except for 2014, we have had a Roto garbage team make the playoffs. That was me in 2013. 8th place by Roto and made the playoffs. 2014, the top 4 teams made the playoffs, so we didn't have one. I came back in 2015 and reclaimed my spot in the playoffs with a 10th place Roto finish. And Maddie was 8th place in Roto, made the playoffs. And then Tahir this year, 8th place and made the playoffs. I told Robin I found the word garbage offensive, and I, prefer genius manager as opposed to garbage. And I am the only top Roto team to not, I think, was it win the championship? Yeah, I'm the only number 1 Roto team to not win a championship, and that was in 2014. Sad face. 4th place, I think that was a year. I think I lost to Joe by like 2 points. I think. I can't remember. So that is Roto in a nutshell for our season. Huzzah, huzzah. Fun stuff. Yeah, my thoughts on the regular season now that it's done. It was pretty good. I don't think not our best year. I mean, it was still fun and silly at times, but it could just be the fact that it was, it's our 5th year going, and we got lax on a lot of stuff, and I think that we'll probably be able to get things back on track for next year. We'll have a new shithead next year, which I think is going to be Marcos. I think in terms of Vidalia greatness rankings, it's going to be Joe, Robin, Tim, unless Robin can win the championship this year. Then he would, I think, have a chance to get the presidency back. But we'll talk about that stuff a little bit later. We'll talk about that, I think, tomorrow. I think that's when we'll get that going. But yeah, I'm just hoping that next year we're able to have, the more, just have that more. I'm just hoping for more involvement. That's it. And more competition throughout the year, and because it's not always that fun when we have people that are selling everything off before it even gets going, and that I'm not blaming the people that do that, but just the fact that is probably going to become the rotating norm for the foreseeable future. It's kind of a bummer, and I'm like, man, I really hope that doesn't end up happening. But all in all, like I said, good year. Let's try and make it. Let's try and make it great again. I don't think I have anything else to say. I did 55 minutes. I think that's pretty good. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night. You can hit me up on Twitter at Peter Livingston. Shoot us an email at ffdynastypod at gmail.com. Thank you all so much. We look to the playoffs. Next episode.